Attention citizens of YMSville, we will be streaming the Adam and Pals Oscars reaction commentary thing on Sunday, March 27th, when the Oscars take place. We will not be streaming any audio or video of the actual Oscars broadcast, we will just be streaming our reaction, so you have to find your own way to watch the Oscars. The stream will take place on both this YouTube channel and also my Twitch channel, link in the description. So smash that notification bell or whatever I'm supposed to tell you to do so that you don't miss the thing. Thank you. Anyway, I just watched all of the Oscar-nominated movies except for the short films, which I'm not able to view yet, and also one documentary, which will not be released digitally until after the Oscars take place, apparently. So I'll be giving my thoughts on all of these movies, I guess. Let's start with the Best Picture nominees in no particular order. First up is Belfast, directed by Kenneth Branagh. This is a very interesting director in the sense that he really loves directing and acting in Shakespeare movies, but he also loves to make really bad movies like Murder on the Orient Express and Artemis Fowl. His newest film, Belfast, won the Audience Award at Toronto Film Festival, and I can understand why. It's definitely a crowd pleaser, if that makes sense. It's a very decent movie, and there is a cute child in the lead role. Jude Hill is the name of the actor, and he is not bad by any means, but unfortunately every line of dialogue that's written for him just sounds like an adult speaking. It is very much a pet peeve of mine to have adults who don't remember what children talk like writing dialogue for child characters. It is very annoying, and it makes it impossible for me to see the character on screen. I instead see the actor and writer. This film has good cinematography, and there are definitely some nice shots here and there. I was worried that this would be another Oscar-baity black and white film that never justified its own visual choices, but this one kinda did. There's several points in the film where characters go to the theater to watch movies, and the films on screen are displayed in color while the characters watching remain in black and white, and from there it's pretty easy to make interpretations. Like, this is very obviously a personal film for Kenneth Branagh. It's pretty clear that the young boy's experience is supposed to mirror his own, and since he is a filmmaker, he obviously loves movies, and we can infer that metaphorically the escapism that he found in films brought color into his life, that they were some kind of magical and otherworldly experience in an otherwise bleak existence. That's my interpretation anyway, so yeah, I enjoy seeing purposeful artistic choices. Unfortunately, not every choice in this film feels justified. There are some really obnoxious editing moments.
Remember that?
The performances in this film were pretty good overall, and they got better as the film went along, with more opportunity for drama. Surprisingly, this film has some level of charm, and it isn't completely devoid of personality. Although much of this is incredibly reliant on the soundtrack choices, there's lots of upbeat, high-energy, nostalgic-sounding music playing throughout this film, but I can't shake the feeling that it's using it as kind of a crutch. It seems a bit too reliant on it, in my opinion. Overall, despite being pretty cheesy, this is not a bad movie. It was kind of cute, and you could really tell that it was a personal story to Kenneth Branagh. There are definitely a lot of ways in which this could have been better, but yep, this is a crowd-pleasing movie. In my opinion, this film has a decent shot at winning Best Picture. It is very inoffensive, and there is a yes, we love movies aspect to the film. Who knows, the Academy members might just vote for it so they can see a cute little kid go up on stage for the Oscars. Aww. Who knows? And I'm giving this one a 5 or 6 out of 10. I rated it 6 on IMDb. Maybe it deserves a 5 instead. I don't know. I wasn't really too personally connected to it, but it was fairly well made overall. I liked that it was a personal story. Whatever, I'm giving it a 6 for now. Alright, next up is Coda. I will make this one quick as there is already a review for this on my channel. Go check that out if you want to hear more things about it. This is a very predictable, sappy, cheesy film that feels like it should be a Disney Channel movie, but despite that, it was still successfully emotional for me at pivotal points in the film. What really helps this movie is that it's clear that the director cares about the characters in the film, which in turn makes it easier for audience members to care. There are some great performances in this film, and I'm glad it has an acting nomination. So yeah, overall, it is a movie that is obnoxiously cheesy, sappy, and formulaic. It almost feels as if it was made solely to be Oscar bait, but it's still pretty well made, and the characters make the experience worth watching. 6 out of 10. Next is Don't Look Up by Adam McKay. This movie is a giant piece of cringe. It's got a great concept, but it's handled just so terribly. It's an end-of-the-world satire film, but the satire is obvious, uninteresting, and unfunny. Everything is so obvious, spelled out, and uninterpretable that it might as well just be one of those shitty stickers of Joe Biden saying, "I did that." Where's the humor? You're just telling me what you think politically, that's it. And I agree with what this film is saying politically. I wish there was another film going for the same thing that was handled by more competent writers. And of course this has a Best Original Screenplay nomination, very cool. It's nominated for Best Original Score, which I thought was fine, and there's much better scores I've heard in the year that were not nominated. And the real kicker is that it is nominated for Best Editing. I am genuinely unsure if I've seen a film in 2021 that had worse editing. It is so over the top and obnoxious and distracting. It is constantly trying very, very hard to be quirky. This is a film where the terrible editing essentially exists to compensate for the terrible writing. Here's some examples.
The Planetary Defense Coordination Office? Is that a real place?
How is that a joke? Is it supposed to be funny solely because it broke the fourth wall? It's a real place. Here's their logo. Like, who gives a shit? It's unnecessary, it doesn't add to the film, and it reeks of trying so hard. There's several points in the film where the editing tries to make it seem like something funny happened by cutting in the middle of someone's sentence.
You're gonna die! You're gonna die! You're
And this is not a bad editing technique to enhance the humor of a scene. The problem is that it is acting as a substitute for the humor in each scene. It's compensating for ineffective comedy, and in doing so, it constantly gives off this embarrassing sense of insisting that it's funny.
What are the little potatoes called? The tiny ones?
fingerling potatoes?
Yeah, let's...
Oh, I fucking love fingerling potatoes.
Let's get finger...
Do you want to say something too?
Oh, it's beautiful, yeah.
The presentation of this film is the equivalent of Jeb Bush saying, "Please clap." It's fucking awful. Now, those are instances where I can at least make sense of the editing, but there are other points in the film where it becomes a lot more difficult. There's points where characters will be talking, but their lips aren't moving.
Isn't that illegal?
Hell yeah, we're going to leak it. In case you didn't notice, the White House just blew us off.
My boyfriend Philip says he knows a reporter.
Now, if this was edited more intuitively, we could probably quickly infer that Leo and the other guy's dialogue was taken from earlier, but they just played it here to save on time or something. But because Jennifer Lawrence's dialogue is placed so quickly after theirs, it feels like it's all a part of the same conversation, so it's very confusing and distracting when it did not need to be. It feels like they were trying to make use of dialogue from a deleted scene or something. We gotta shove it in here, and the movie's already way too long, so fuck it. Even more confusing is an editing choice closer to the end of the film.
At this moment, why not? I actually like the junky taste of store-bought better than homemade.
The character who you hear talking is the character who we see not talking, but it started out showing him talking like that, so we're just using a clip from a different moment in the dinner, and then it freeze frames for no reason. Did my TV break? Is Netflix buffering? No, that's part of the movie. It is very off-putting to the point where it feels like a mistake. Like, they know that's in the movie, right? Right? This movie is way too fucking long for no reason, and the entire experience is just so one note. Early in the film, it becomes pretty clear what the rest of the film is going to be, and it just does that for 2.5 hours. No surprises, no entertainment, just a bunch of preachy nonsense masquerading as a comedy film. This is a particularly bad movie, and the only joke that I found funny in the entire film was the fact that this got nominated for Best Picture. Every category it's nominated for is completely undeserved, and 75% of them would be a huge fucking meme. So let's see what happens, I guess. Can't really be surprised by anything after a Green Book Best Picture win and a Bohemian Rhapsody Best Editing win. Yay, Oscars! And I'm giving this one a 3 out of 10. Next up is Drive My Car. I'll keep this one quick as I already have a video on it, so check out my TIFF 2021 video if you want to hear more. Long story short, it is not a poorly made film, but I did not really connect with it. I did not care about the characters, I did not care about the story, it was very long. Even when I watched it at TIFF, it felt really Oscar baity, which is weird because it's a Japanese film, but I guess I was right. Some parts are decently well shot, there are some really good performances here and there, but overall, despite its sentimental tone, it was a very hollow hollow experience for me. I wish I cared about anything that was happening. It was very long. Don't let me stop you from watching it because apparently everybody else enjoys it, and I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Next is Dune, or shall I say Dune Part 1. I'll keep this one quick because I made a video for this already, but watch it if you want to hear more. I actually made quite a few criticisms in that video, but all of the comments seem to be people being mad that I don't like the design of the ornithopters, which is very funny to me. Anyway, this movie is not terrible. It is a well-directed, well-made film for the most part. It has good cinematography. There are intuitive decisions going into a lot of the technical elements of this film. Some of the effects look good, and some of them look really fucking bad. My biggest problem is that it has a very unsatisfying structure, and it does not really function as its own standalone film. Unlike Kill Bill Volume 1, it is a film that is more or less dependent on the experience of the second film, which isn't even out yet. So perhaps my opinion on this movie will change when the second part is out. I guess I will be rewatching it at that point anyway. So for now, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Also, the casting choices were very distracting. Thank you. Next up is King Richard, starring Will Smith. I really could not with this movie. I could not do it. It was so cheesy and so boring. I could not do it. It was legitimately unwatchable. It was so fucking boring. The music was obnoxious and overpresent. At the very least, it was clear that Will Smith was putting effort into playing an actual character in this film. But yeah, I had to dip it like 10-15 minutes through the movie. I couldn't do it. I tried. I really couldn't do it. It was so fucking boring. I could not stand this movie. It's 2.5 hours long. There's no way. I'm sorry. So from what I saw of it, I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10. Thanks. Next up is Licorice Pizza, the new Paul Thomas Anderson film. This is a very well-made film. There are some good performances, some great production design. Much of it felt very natural and authentic. It is very well directed and has a great tone. This is a film where the soundtrack choices are complementing the experience of the setting and story rather than insisting it. There's a lot of great choices here, and it's a very well-made and fairly entertaining film for me. However, the structure and overall story of this film left me pretty unsatisfied. What was really missing from this film for me was a proper sense of setting and payoff. The scenes in this film feel so separated from each other in ways that they might as well be interchangeable. The scenes didn't feel like they were part of a greater narrative. They more or less just felt like a series of vignettes. There was a Sean Penn scene, there was a Bradley Cooper scene. There are so many characters that just exist within their own contained scene and are never seen again. Perhaps this has to do with the themes of the film, I'm not sure, but it really doesn't help that the film essentially tries to pretend otherwise by the end of it. They show characters running while they play a bunch of flashbacks to the same characters running at other points in the film. There was so much implied but unearned significance there, and it was really weird and off-putting. Perhaps if I ever watched this film again, then I would enjoy it more just knowing what it is, but I don't really feel too compelled to do that. Still, it was a nice, well-made film that was charming and fun for the most part. I enjoyed the humor, it worked well as a great 70s period piece. It also was not boring. It just didn't quite offer me the type of narrative experience that I like, I guess. I enjoyed watching it, but it's not gonna stick with me very long. Anyway, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. Next up is Nightmare Alley by Guillermo del Toro. I actually enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. I'm not a huge fan of Bradley Cooper, but he did a really great job in this movie. My favorite aspects of this film were the cinematography and production design. It's a really great looking movie, and I love the variety of lenses throughout the film. You can really breathe in the visuals of this film, and there's lots to absorb. It's really creatively presented, and it's clear that there's a vision there. There's plenty of different sets and changing visuals in this film, and it really helps prevent it from feeling stale. There's a huge cast in this film, and everybody does a great job. I really enjoyed the story and characters. There are still a few tiny things that are holding this film back for me a bit. There are some moments that are kind of silly and illogical. There's some CG fire that doesn't look great because there's no smoke. There's some action moments that don't translate super well. And despite having a great pacing overall, it was still a bit longer than it needed to be. Regardless, I really enjoyed this movie, and I could see myself watching it again. It has great performances, great sets, great aesthetic, great cinematography. It's just a really well-made movie, and I would recommend it. So check this one out, and I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. Next is The Power of the Dog, directed by Jane Campion. Check out my TIFF 2021 video if you want to hear more detailed thoughts, but for now I'll keep this short. This is a very professional looking and well-made film. There's some nice cinematography, there's plenty of good performances. The musical score by Johnny Greenwood is probably my favorite aspect of the film. Each of the characters in this film had a lot of character to them, and I really enjoyed the story as the film went along. It's not a perfect movie overall, and it didn't blow me away, but it was thoroughly enjoyable, and I will be seeing it again. And I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. And the last of the Best Picture nominees is West Side Story. This is a Steven Spielberg joint. It is a remake of a classic musical that is also a 60s film, and boy, I gotta tell you, this movie is not for me. It is a very safe and boring movie. I do not care about anything that happens in it. I do not care about the characters. The songs are not catchy for me. Really just not my vibe at all. At the very least, I could appreciate the lighting and visuals looking very authentic to the time period, but aside from that, I was struggling to pay attention. I wish I could care about anything in this movie, but I could not, and I gave up after about 30 minutes because I was just wasting my time. Sorry. From what I saw, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. And that's it for my Best Picture nominees. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that my ratings aren't particularly high for any film this year. If Judas and the Black Messiah was nominated this year, then that would be one film that I would give at least an 8 out of 10, but for some reason it was competing against 2020 films in last year's Oscars, even though its earliest screening was February of 2021. But Coda was released before Judas and the Black Messiah, and it's competing with this year's films. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of stupid rules about the Oscars, and there's a video on my highlights channel about it. I don't want to get into it right now. The point is, I think it's stupid. Judas and the Black Messiah came out in 2021. It should be competing with other films that came out in 2021. Whatever, I guess. Alright, let's talk about the rest of the feature-length films that are nominated for Oscars but not Best Picture. Being the Ricardos by Aaron Sorkin, it's nominated for some performance awards. The combination of dialogue, editing, and acting was very awful. The music was very cheesy. It was very boring and thoroughly annoying. I did not watch the whole thing, but I don't remember where I left. 4 out of 10. Tick Tick Boom has Andrew Garfield nominated for the lead role. It is also nominated for editing. I thought Andrew Garfield did a great job, and I wouldn't be too disappointed if he won, I guess. Most of the music in this film is catchy, but unfortunately the in-between scenes weren't really too captivating for me. It's a bit cheesy, but you can tell that the people involved have their heart in it. 3090 is a very catchy song, and I've listened to it many times after watching the film. Some of the songs are kind of bad. The end song had particularly weak lyrics. It's a decent movie. It gets better as it develops. It did not blow me away, but it was pretty good, and 3090 is very catchy, so 6 out of 10. The Tragedy of Macbeth is the new Joel Cohen film. He did it without his brother Ethan, and it's nominated for Denzel Washington in the lead role and also production design and cinematography. Denzel does a great job acting. It is a very well shot film. I loved the cinematography. The production design was nice too, but the cinematography is what really stands out. The lighting and atmosphere were great. There's some great choices in the sound design with some very subtle atmospheric background audio. I loved the overall aesthetic of the film. I just wish it was not Shakespearean because I do not understand what anyone is saying ever. Like, I can infer what the intents of characters are and what is happening over the course of the film, but it's only really in a way where it feels like half of their dialogue is just useless to me. I can't really deal with the Shakespearean dialect. It is not for me. I must have a problem with my brain. I am low IQ. Very well made film. There's some damn beautiful cinematography and lots of great aspects about the production. I just, I'm not a big fan of Shakespearean dialect. I'm sorry. I stopped after an hour, 6 out of 10. The Eyes of Tammy Faye is a movie that Jessica Chastain has an acting nomination for, and it is also nominated for makeup and hairstyling. It was very boring. It felt pointless. I tried. I made it about 10 minutes. I couldn't. I'm sorry. I gave up. Bye-bye. 4 or 5, I guess? I don't know. The Lost Daughter is nominated for adapted screenplay and also 2 acting awards. It was decent. It was just very slow. I connected with parts of it, but I stopped watching at about an hour through the movie because it wasn't really going anywhere. It felt like it had said everything it wanted to say already, and it was just kind of slow, and I was just waiting for it to be over, so I left. I'm sorry. If it was 90 minutes, I probably would have enjoyed it more. From what I saw, it was a 6 out of 10. Not bad, I guess. Parallel Mothers is the new Pedro Almodovar film, and Penelope Cruz is nominated for performance, and it is also nominated for Best Score. The music was decent. It wasn't really Oscar nom worthy or anything. The way that they used the music was more interesting than the music itself, actually. There was a lot of music, and it was used at interesting points in the film. Just the score itself was good, just not amazing. Penelope Cruz did a great job, but she wasn't even close to being the best actor in the film. The actor who played the mother of the other mother was really fantastic. She deserved the nomination more than Penelope Cruz, but Penelope Cruz has got a big name, and they're trying to get people to watch the Oscars, so whatever. It was a really good movie overall, just kind of weird pacing and structure. The first half hour was kind of slow, and then the next hour was very interesting and super engaging, and then the last half hour was kind of slow again. So this movie has a very strong middle. Definitely worth watching. I'll probably never see it again. 6 out of 10. Thank you. Spencer is nominated for 1 Oscar, and that is for Kristen Stewart's performance. This was a well-deserved nomination, but personally I feel like this film was snubbed in other categories, most notably for musical score, which was composed by Johnny Greenwood, who currently has a nomination for The Power of the Dog, I know, but Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross were nominated for 2 different films last year, and even though the score for this and The Power of the Dog are both great, I do prefer this one. It was kind of like a jazzy noir-like soundtrack, but with a bit more anxiety mixed in. It was a very unique and interesting composition, and I really loved it. You could easily give this film nominations for directing, cinematography, production design, hairstyle and makeup, etc. They just decided to only do the acting, and that's it. Each aspect of this film is strong and confident about what it is. It's got interesting and memorable themes, and yeah, I loved it. I'll watch it again. I would not be upset if this got a Best Picture nomination, considering it is a much better film than Don't Look Up. Whatever, I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. It's closer to a 7 than a 9. Alright, let's do the animated movies. Encanto is what is going to win this year. It was a decent movie. I enjoyed much of it. The music is great, and all of the songs are really catchy except one, and it is the one that is nominated for an Oscar, which is Disney's fault because they campaigned for it in their For Your Consideration campaign. This movie's not perfect. There are some cheesy bits, and John Leguizamo is kind of distracting. The animation was mostly great, but whoever was animating that jaguar did not know how they move. It was really blocky and choppy and distracting. There are some annoying conveniences because it is a kids movie that is not trying to have a good plot. I liked the characters. It had a great energy for most of it, but the ending was out of fucking nowhere, and everything got resolved really abruptly. I was expecting a lot more movie, and then it was just like, no, things are fine, okay, whatever. I was starting to get impatient with it near the end anyway. I don't think that the more seriously toned scenes were as good. Anyway, we're moving on. 5 out of 10. Bye. Flea is a film that is nominated for animated feature and also international and documentary. It's an animated documentary, and it's about gay people, and they're fleeing a country. I tried watching it on 2 separate occasions. I couldn't really get into it. I'm not really a big fan of the animation style. The facial expressions are just not expressive in the slightest, and it really feels like a waste of animation to me. I got bored very quickly and was not relating to anything happening. I guess this is a more interesting nomination than Boss Baby 2, so great. 5 out of 10. Luca is another Disney movie, and the characters were very boring. I had no reason to care about them. I did not care about the goals of the characters. Everything seemed insignificant. It was very, 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 very boring. It was stupid. 4 out of 10. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is a film that a lot of people really loved. I thought it was alright. I am sorry. I loved the animation style, but the narrative experience was very lacking for me. It was insanely predictable at every turn, and I found it difficult to be entertained. The constant references to meme humor was also kinda cringe. 5 out of 10. I am sorry. Raya and the Last Dragon is another Disney film, and it is nominated for an Oscar for some reason. The animation was so bad that I didn't even know it was Disney until I looked it up. Compared to other current Disney films, it feels really out of place. The textures lack detail. It feels like everyone's skin has some shitty airbrush filter. The voice acting sounds like a second-rate dub of a film that was originally presented in another language. The dialogue is terrible. The jokes are not funny in the slightest. The characters are somehow simultaneously annoying and forgettable. The fight scenes have awful choreography, and they're terribly shot. There is no skill or purpose in the shot composition. The way that characters move reminds me of the 2001 video game Fusion Frenzy for the original Xbox. It is clunky and inconsistent. There is no smoothness at all. It feels like some shitty Netflix animated TV show for kids. This is an insanely boring movie that feels dated and unfinished, and I can't believe Disney released this with their name on it. It is genuinely atrocious. 3 out of 10. Cruella has a nomination for costume design. It will probably win. There are lots of costumes in it. There is a longer review for this on my channel. Maybe you should watch that. It was a very bad movie. 2 out of 10. Cyrano is a movie which is nominated for costumes also. Peter Dinklage is in it. There was music in it, and there was lots of noticeable auto-tune whenever Peter Dinklage was singing. It was kind of lame and boring. I made it about 30 minutes. 5 out of 10. Alright, let's do documentaries now. Ascension is a documentary about how China's being fucking whack, yo. It's a lot of footage without narration, and it shows things like factory production, gamers, businesses, water parks, sales, social education, etc. It's an interesting confrontation with reality, and there's some nice music by Dan Deacon to go along with it. There are some great shots here and there, and it is visually interesting for the most part. However, I still wish it would have pushed a bit farther with its presentation. Everything about it was super solid, but nothing was exceptional, and by the end of it, it started to get a bit repetitive and felt like maybe 10 to 15 minutes could have been shaved off. Anyway, this is a good movie, and I would recommend it. It was not as good as Up the Yangtze, but it's a good movie. And I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's closer to a 7 than a 5. Attica is a documentary about a prison riot in the 70s, and it is a film where the subject matter is about 1 billion times more interesting than the documentary itself. The editing and presentation of this documentary is just so painfully basic and unspecial. Some of the music used sounded really cheap, cheesy, and annoying. There were some awful-looking graphics at points. This documentary is mostly a lot of just people talking without much effort from the filmmakers to make the documentary something more. It's like a really basic television documentary that you would never watch unless you were flipping through channels and you had nothing else to do and you were just so bored and lazy that you had to. I have no idea why this was nominated. I stopped watching at about 25 minutes into it. I was not going to sit there for 2 hours. Sorry. 5 out of 10! Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised, is a documentary from Questlove, who DJs the Oscars, so that's probably why it will win. It was not bad from what I watched. It was just not my thing at all. If you're gonna make a music documentary, you gotta do something really special to keep me engaged, because I do not love them, usually. 5 out of 10! Writing with Fire is a documentary that I did not see, and there's no way for me to watch it until after the Oscars, so nothing out of 10. The Hand of God is nominated for Best International Feature. It is the new Paolo Sorrentino film from Italy. As expected, it looks great, it's super well shot, there's lots of flowing camera movements. It is a very bizarre and weird film to watch. It's very well made, it's got great acting, just unfortunately I did not connect with it very much, so I turned it off after about an hour, and from what I saw, it was a 6 out of 10. Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom is also nominated for International Feature. I do not know why this is nominated. It's from 2019 also. The music in this film is awful. It has a very cheap sounding soundtrack with a bunch of noticeably fake drum sounds. I did not connect to anything in this movie. It was so fucking boring. I shut it off after about 17 minutes. Sorry, 5 out of 10. The Worst Person in the World is the new Joachim Trier film, and it is also nominated for Best International Feature and Screenplay. This is my favorite film out of all of the international feature nominees. Drive My Car is going to win, but I liked this one a lot better. There is a longer review for this in my TIFF 2021 video. Long story short, it's got great writing, I love the characters, I love the editing, everything is paced really well. It feels like a classic movie already. It's a great character study that feels honest and emotionally complex. It was a hilarious and dramatic and meaningful film. I loved it. Please check it out. 8 out of 10. Coming to America is the sequel to Coming to America, and it is nominated for makeup and hairstyling. The first film is from 1988. It's directed by John Landis. It has some charm, but it is too long for what it is. There were some funny moments, but it was not amazing. 5 out of 10. This newest film that's nominated is actually not as bad as I thought it would be. From what I saw, it actually did a pretty great job at capturing the feeling of the original film. There are some odd moments here and there where they were trying a bit too hard to modernize things, but for the most part, it seemed pretty faithful. Some of the writing is genuinely funny, and some of it is annoying with how transparent and preachy it is. The filmmaking was actually kind of impressive at points. They essentially created extended scenes from the first film, and they did a really great job at making it look like it was authentically 30 years ago. I wasn't hating the experience at all. It was not a bad movie, but after about 35 minutes I dipped because I was comfortable knowing what it was. Maybe it got better, maybe it got worse after that point, who knows? I'm a busy boy, and it's clear that this wasn't gonna make my list or anything, so yeah, from what I saw, I guess 5 out of 10. Woo! House of Gucci is a movie from Ridley Scott. It has a nomination for makeup and hairstyling, and I guess that's it. It was simultaneously boring and annoying. I turned it off after about 12 minutes. It was a complete waste of time. The movie is way too long. What was it? It's 3 hours almost? Jesus, there's no way I was gonna do that. Sorry, Ridley. 5 out of 10. No Time to Die is the new James Bond film. It is nominated for original song and visual effects and sound. I watched enough of it to reaffirm that it is not my thing. The opening scene was very cheesy and stupid, and then the scene after that was very cheesy and stupid, and then the scene after that was very cheesy and stupid. I made it 40 minutes before I turned it off. Thank you. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. 4 Good Days is nominated for original song. It's got Mila Kunis and what's her name? Glenn Close. Mila Kunis is a drug addict, and Glenn Close is like, I am your mother, stop being a drug addict. And she's like, Mom, I like drugs, and I want to not be on them to make you happy, but I also like them. So they do a detox, and this is about her trying not to do drugs so that they can give her different drugs. The 2 main performances were not bad, but outside of that, the acting was very wooden and fake. It's not the worst movie ever, but over time, it starts to become really melodramatic and exhausting. I stopped at about 47 minutes, and at that point, I thought it was almost over, but it was like halfway through, and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm finishing this one. Sorry. The song in the end credits is what was nominated, and it was really bad. It was just very cliched country music with really obvious and uninspired lyrics and a predictable key change moment. And I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10. Free Guy is nominated for visual effects for some reason. I swore that I would never watch this film, but after the Oscar nomination, I got curious, and so I thought, yeah, well, maybe I'll just watch the first 5 minutes of it. And I wound up watching the whole thing because I was so glued to the insane amount of cringe that was in this film, I could not look away. This film is outstandingly obnoxious throughout. It's like a worse version of the Lego movie. Ryan Reynolds plays Deadpool because he just does that in every movie. He's just Deadpool forever now. All the jokes are really cringe. There's some haha lol so random humor. There's some reference humor where it's like, oh, I recognize that's one of my favorite streamers. That's Pokimane, and there's Ninja, and there's Tommy in it. And there's another one. The movie is very lame. It's inconsistent. Everything looks like shit. The writing is awful. The acting is bad. And somehow Taika Waititi is the worst part of the entire movie.
Kill it. Throw everything at them, all right? 5 badges, G.
Yeah, just one problem. We don't have anything.
What you talking about, Willis?
Giga cringe.
I couldn't stop watching. This whole movie reaches levels of cringe once previously thought impossible.
Catchphrase. Catchphrase?
Well, I haven't had time to think one up yet. Although catchphrase, as a catchphrase, is a pretty cool catchphrase.
These are the jokes in the film. That was a joke you just saw, and it was in the movie as a joke. It is very interesting to me. Fascinating is a word to describe it. There's a part in the movie where Deadpool picks up the Captain America shield, and they play the Avengers music, and everyone clapped, even though I didn't see this in a theater. I could feel everyone clapping. And then they showed Chris Evans watching it on his phone because he's Captain America. That's the joke. He's the guy that plays Captain America, and he picked up the shield and they played the music of Captain America. That was in the movie. And immediately after this, he picks up a lightsaber and they play the Star Wars music because it's a lightsaber, and that's from Star Wars, and the Star Wars music is also from Star Wars, so they played that.
Hold on. Is that a lightsaber? Yes! That's a lightsaber, dude.
Okay, I've come up with a new word to describe how I'm feeling about this. It is infinicringe. You get it? It's because the word cringe and infinity is in, you combine them together. It's more cringe than is calculable. The effects in this movie are very bad, and this is what it's nominated for, is visual effects, and it all looks like shit. You can't even argue that it's intentionally bad because it's trying to look video gamey, because the video game characters are live action people, so I consider this nomination to be proof that the Academy does not watch the films they vote on. Oh, this movie looks like it has visual effects in it, and it was also campaigned for by Disney to have us nominated, so let's do it. Yeah, this movie was a bunch of bullshit. I could go into detail explaining how nothing makes sense, but it would be embarrassing to find out that someone would need that explained to them. It is pretty obvious on a surface level. It's like a video game movie made for people who have never played a video game. It's like an entire script of, hello, fellow kids. Every music choice is obvious and uninspired. The writing lacks care and self-awareness. The film pretends not to take itself seriously, but there are many seriously toned points in the film that contradict this. There will be chase scenes where the music and energy are heavily implying like, oh no, there's some sort of peril right now. I hope the main character makes it out of this alive. Oh no, he's in such danger right now. But we were just shown that he can't die and he's not real, so who gives a shit? Why should I care about this? Oh no, don't shoot him. It'll make him die and come back in like 2 seconds. He woke up after getting hit by a train, right? Who gives a shit? It's a movie that is not honest with itself about what it is. It is embarrassingly pandering. It's the type of thing where it seems like it would be a fake movie that doesn't actually exist, but it would be shown as a trailer in another film's universe, and the purpose of showing it would be to provide some sort of commentary or criticism on the state of filmmaking today. But it's a real movie somehow, and a lot of people like it. It's Jordan Peterson's favorite, I think. And I actually finished this one. I watched it all the way through. It was a very intense experience. It challenged me emotionally and intellectually, perhaps even morally. Yeah, this is a big old 2 out of 10 from me. If you love cringe, then go check it out. It is a film that makes me sad. Goodbye. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is nominated for visual effects. I decided I would see what it was, I guess. It wasn't terrible, but man, were the visual effects ever incredibly unrealistic. I'm not really a huge fan of the everything's in a computer aesthetic. There's some cool martial arts at the very least. That kind of differentiates itself between other Marvel films. It was kind of lame, not my thing. I dipped at about 22 minutes into it. 5 out of 10. Spider-Man No Way Home is also nominated for effects. I did a larger review on this if you want to see it. I had a lot of fun with this movie. There's definitely a lot of stupid things that happen. There's stupid characters, but I enjoyed it overall. For the most part, it was pretty good at handling its emotions. Sure, there was a lot of fan service, but instead of merely referencing something like Free Guy, it instead used these existing properties that fans love to create something new out of it. The cinematography and framing is also noticeably improved from the other two John Watts Spider-Man films, so that's a plus. I really enjoyed it, and the special effects were pretty good for the most part. Definitely a lot better than Shang-Chi and Free Guy. 7 out of 10! And I guess that's about it, so now I will talk about what I think should have been nominated, but wasn't. Cryptozoo was a very unique and interesting animated film by Dash Shaw. Sure, it's not for everyone, it's kind of weird, but there's an awful lot of soul and passion in this film, and I don't see why it shouldn't be nominated if we're going to give nominations to films like Raya and The Last Dragon. Why would the Oscars celebrate art when they can celebrate dumb movies for babies? Anyway, I thought this movie was great. There is a longer review for it on my channel, 7 out of 10 for now. In the documentary category, there are a couple films that easily should have been nominated in my opinion. One of them is All Light Everywhere by Theo Anthony. This director has only made 2 feature films, but I consider him to be one of my favorite documentary filmmakers at this point. The way he presents information is done so in an incredibly thought-provoking, purposeful, and philosophical way. He takes subjects that any other filmmaker would cover on more or less a surface level, and he expands them artfully to cover so much more. He creates films that actively encourage the viewer to engage with the subject matter. The presentation is phenomenal, and both films have a great soundtrack from Dan Deacon. So yeah, check both of his films out. Rat Film was great, and this film, All Light Everywhere, feels like a snub. Unfortunately, Neon did not include this film in their For Your Consideration campaign, so hopefully his his next film gets a bit more support. 8 out of 10 for Bofa. My current favorite film of 2021 is another documentary called Listening to Kenny G, and for some reason this film was not even eligible for a nomination. There's a bunch of stupid rules. There's a video on my highlights channel about the stupid rules, so it's dumb. Anyway, I'll keep this short. I talked about this in my TIFF video. This is a super well-made, well-presented documentary that is very informative, very exciting, entertaining, exhilarating, everything. It is thought-provoking, it is packed with information, the tone and pacing are great, and overall it is a super accessible and easy-to-love film. So yeah, please check this one out. 9 out of 10. Oscars, you stink. Other documentaries that I really enjoyed and am surprised are not nominated are The Rescue from the directors of Free Solo, that won documentary that other year, In the Same Breath by Nanfu Wong, a really good movie, and Julia, a documentary about Julia Child. 7 out of 10 for these three movies. They are all much better than Attica. International Feature has a couple films that probably should have been in there. Compartment No. 6 is a fantastic movie. There's a video for it on my channel already, but anyway, this is Finland's official submission for the Oscars, and they did not get nominated, even though they probably should have. It is such an incredibly accessible, easy-to-love film that I just have to believe they didn't watch it. I don't really want to spoil anything about the movie. It's best to just go in blind. It is successfully comedic and dramatic. I absolutely love the characters in this film. The blocking in this film, the way that they use the characters and the space that they have, it is done with so much talent. Super well-made film, really easy to love, great story, great characters. 8 out of 10. Titane won the Palme d'Or this year. It is directed by Julia Ducournau. I have been incorrectly pronouncing it as Titane instead of Titane. It is a super well-shot, well-paced, really weird, really intense, feminist art house horror movie thing. We had a full spoiler discussion about this film on my podcast, Sardonicast, if you're interested. I was never expecting this to get nominated because the Academy is way too uncool and out of touch. But if they actually cared about talent, then perhaps they would consider nominating Vincent Lindon for his performance in this film, which was absolutely fantastic. As much as I like Jesse Plemons and J.K. Simmons, sorry, Vincent did a better job this year. There could easily be nominations for directing, cinematography, makeup and hairstyling, editing, etc. But nope, the Academy is uncool and out of touch, so this film gets ignored. 8 out of 10. Check it out, please. Thank you. Other international features I loved from 2021 are Seven Prisoners, which I thought easily could have been nominated, but wasn't, and Intrigalde, which I was not expecting them to nominate because it is too interesting and out there and different. Both of those are 8 out of 10 from me, and there's videos on my channel talking about them. There's also Hive from Kosovo, which honestly I was kind of expecting to get a nomination, but it didn't. The new Asghar Farhadi film, A Hero from Iran. The new Baz Punpriya film, One for the Road from Thailand. Out of Sync from Spain, and Aloners from South Korea. All of those films are easy 7 out of 10s from me, and much better than Lunana, a Yak in the Classroom. And other films I really enjoyed from 2021 include Bo Burnham's Inside, which might not be eligible because I guess it's considered a TV special and not a movie, even though I consider it a movie, but whatever. The Humans by Stephen Karam easily could have gotten some acting nominations, or cinematography, or editing. Best Adapted Screenplay, maybe. The new Sean Baker film, Red Rocket, is, I think, my favorite out of all of his. It could easily have gotten Screenplay or Best Picture. It's a really great movie. You should check it out. Longer reviews for all of these on my channel also. And yeah, 8 out of 10 for those three movies. No nominations. There's a bunch of snubs, and I haven't even seen every movie from 2021 that I would like to. So this is just scratching the surface of movies that deserved nominations more than Don't Look Up. Anyway, let me know in the comments who you thought was snubbed and for what category. So yeah, if anybody ever tries to tell you that I do not love any movies, it's probably because they have never actually considered that movies outside of the mainstream exist. Anyway, thank you for watching, and remember, I will be doing an Oscars commentary stream on the date of the Oscars, which is March 27th. It's a Sunday. Here's the link to my Twitch channel. I will also be streaming it on YouTube. And I'm giving this existence on this planet a 6 out of 10. Thank you. Like,
nope.
I'm turning as fast as I can, and it's not letting me.
Oh, no more music.
Oh
time.
my god!
Oh.
I'm stuck! What?